how do we move from good to great? So what does good look like when we're talking about forecasting? So this theme has been bubbling up to the top around good to great, tactics to transformation, so that we can push into these business outcomes around CX, customer experience, employee experience, and business profitability. And so let's talk about it, right? Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Tipsy Thursdays. I am your show host, Juanita Coley, the contact center whisperer, the CEO and founder of Solid Rock Consulting. And I'm super excited to be hopping into this episode. This episode, we're talking about good to great, right? I've been getting questions. I released the book this year, WFM Go Beyond, in October, November last year, 2024. I released WFM Go Beyond. And we've been using the book as a guide to walk us through from the tactics to the strategy, moving from tactics to transformation. And so at the beginning of the year, we covered a lot around data gathering, forecasting, scheduling, and intraday. And that's part one of the book. But then part two of the book, we start to get into strategy and leaning into how do we make sure that the tactics that must be done, okay? Because I think people get confused sometimes when I talk about, hey, we got to move from tactics to transformation, as if the tactics don't have to get done. I am not saying that the tactics are not important and they shouldn't get done. What I'm saying is that we have to move from only tactics to transformation. And that requires us to be strategic. Okay. And so in that, I've been talking about that, and this theme has kind of been bubbling up to the top of like, okay, yes, that's good, but we want to move from good to great. And so my friends over at Verint, we've been playing with this idea for Engage 2025 is coming up. And so I'm super, super excited that we are going to be doing a session together, good to great. Okay. So WFM going beyond good to great. And so I'm super excited. I'm not going to give you all of the spoiler details, or I'm not going to give you, so you got to come to the session. If you have not registered for Engage yet, make sure that you do that. Okay. So Engage 2025 is coming up. I'll make sure I put the link around here somewhere, give y'all a little special discount code. But my point is, how do we move from good to great? So what does good look like when we're talking about forecasting? If you caught my episode at the beginning of the year sometime, we were talking about forecasting and the importance of forecasting and some tips and tricks when it came to forecasting. I even hopped in and showed you some of the things that you can do when it came to forecasting inside of your workforce management solution, whether you are using Verint, whether you're using any WFM solution, right? We talked about those different things. We talked about the different types of forecasts. But this episode, I want to push a little bit deeper and go into what good forecasting looks like. So are you forecasting based on what you hope will happen or what the business needs to happen? Right? And what you predicting the demand is going to be. How are you forecasting? Right? So we got to put definitions on these things. Hey guys, listen. So y'all know I'm a data nerd, and 88% of you guys that are watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. So if you are finding value in this content, can I ask you to do me a favor? Could you subscribe to our channel? What this allows us to do is to continue to keep adding value, bringing insights and the latest in trends around customer experience, employee experience, business profitability, workforce management. Thank you so much for being here. You are truly valued. We appreciate if you would subscribe and follow us for more information. Good forecasting looks like you're pulling historical data consistently. Somebody say that. Okay, type that in the chat. You're pulling historical data consistently. Okay, you are looking at your historical data, and then you have basic volume trends and analysis of like, hey, this is what historically has happened. These are the trends. You have analyzed that, and you're using WFM tools, right? If we're thinking about going at scale, right? Because you could do forecasting without a tool. But if we're talking about lots of cues that you have and lots of different work groups and work types that you're going to be forecasting for, then now good looks like leveraging your workforce tools to make sure that you can do this forecasting. Okay, so this is what good looks like. Using our historical data consistently, we're recognizing and identifying trends, patterns that we're using, and then we're using our WFM tools to help us forecast at scale. When we say great, what does great now look like? Great looks like modeling based off of business goals, service targets, external variables and factors, including things like your marketing campaigns. So it's not just your historical data, but it's also saying, hey, we're running this marketing campaign, which is why I'm always saying, I say this all the time, workforce management must be in everybody's business. Yes, they must, right? Because if the organization whole goal is to obtain a customer, every business has this goal. I have to obtain a customer, and then I have to be able to serve that customer, which means I have to be able to predict the demand that the customer is going to request. And then I have to also then be able to serve that customer. And so if I am an organization that has marketing campaigns, sales goals, and quotas, and all of these different things, just looking at your historical data when you're launching a new campaign, right? This is why we have trouble with launching new businesses, right? Because you don't have any historical data on a new campaign that you're running, which means now I have to lean into my marketing team. I have to lean into my sales team. I have to be in these other departments. I have to be co-collaborators with these or the other departments to make sure that I'm including their information and taking their information into consideration when I'm thinking about forecasting. Okay. So good forecasting looks like, okay, I'm looking at this historical data. I'm analyzing trends, and I am taking into account the known variables. I'm leveraging my workforce management tools. Great forecasting says, yes, not only am I looking at my historical data and I'm using different forecasting methods and techniques, but I'm also looking at external variables like my marketing campaigns, things that are weather driven, all of these different things to say, oh, okay, now let me layer this on top of my known variables like my historical data. This is important. Leveraging insight. So if you are in Verint, right, and you're leveraging the Data Insights Bot, leveraging these insights to be able to interpret, also gain deeper insights on what this data means. So this is what great looks like. So when we're talking about going from good to great, we're talking about, okay, good means I'm leveraging my historical data. So if you're not even leveraging your historical data and consistently, we got work to do to get to good. But if this is what you're doing, great, that's amazing. You're at good. Now, how do we get to great? Great looks like, okay, not only am I leveraging this historical data and analyzing and looking at trends, but I'm also looking at outside and external variables and working and co-collaborating. Somebody say that, okay? I'm co-collaborating with these different departments. I want you to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, when was the last time you reached out to marketing? When was the last time you reached out to a different department and asked them what they were doing? That drives volume inside of the contact center. When was the last time? So great forecasting means that I not only leveraging the variables of the known variables that I know, which is our historical data, but also means taking in consideration other departments that are generating volume for the contact center. And that may look like sales, that may look like marketing, that may look like whatever the different departments are in your organization, which is why I'm always saying workforce management must be in everybody's business. So how do we get there? How do we get from good to great? How do we get from not good to good, right? From good to then great. Okay, because that's what this year is about. When we're talking about WFM going beyond, we're talking about moving from tactics to transformation. But some of us are stuck in just tactics. Some of us don't even know the tactics to pull. And that's okay if that's where you are. This is the whole point of this talk, right? The whole point of me sharing this with you is to help you be able to identify, where are you in your forecasting journey? Are you leveraging your historical data consistently? Is your data clean? Okay, so we have a framework here at SRC, and it's a clear framework when it comes to data. That's a talk for a whole nother time. Okay, I may link to that in the comments. Okay, one, we need to tighten up on our forecasting assumptions. Member to call ratios, store to call ratios, shrinkage range, all of our historical data. This is why it's so important when we talk about that first pillar in the book, right? Data, right? That we have clear data. Your data should give you clear insights into what you're doing in historical patterns and trends. So this is our first thing, is that we have to tighten up on our forecasting assumptions, like our historical data, making sure that we have the right ratios, all of these different things. Then we need to be co-collaborators. Somebody say that, co-collaborators. We need to be co-collaborators when it comes to working with various departments in the organization that is going to drive volume into the contact center. Departments such as marketing, sales, and all of these different departments that are going to drive volume into our contact center space. And then lastly, if you are a Verint user, leveraging the Data Insight Bot so that you can dive deeper, leveraging into insights, right? You don't just have information, but you have insight. You don't just have information. That was good to me. That's what that means, right? When I do that little lean, that means it was good to me, okay? You don't just have information, but you have insights. The Data Insight Bot will allow you to have insight into the information. So many times we have overwhelmed because we just have so much information that we're like, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't even know what all of this means. Well, the Data Insight Bot allows you to leverage the data in a way that gives you clarity and gives you insight so that you can move into action. You can push forward. You can advance into forward momentum movement. You can have forward momentum, which means you can move forward, you can advance, because I'm not just accessing information, I'm accessing insight. I have now insight. And so this is how we go from good to great. We go from good to great by not only leveraging our historical data, by also looking at external variables, co-collaborating with different departments. Listen, if you did not catch the original episode on forecasting, I highly recommend that you go back and watch that. But as we move forward and we continue to push forward into transformation, going from good to great, these are some of the things that you need to be considering. Making sure that you are a co-collaborator. Can't stress that enough. A co-collaborator with your other departments. This is going to take your forecasting from good to great, because you're going to gain so much more information than you would have normally had if you were just looking at the historical data. Again, if you're launching new campaigns, you're standing up a new line of business, some of that historical, you don't have historical data. And so the way you're going to be able to forecast better is to co-collaborate with these other departments, leveraging your Data Insight Bot if you are a Verint user. So I hope that this was helpful to you and gave you just a little nugget, a little taste, okay, of some of what we're going to be talking about at Verint Engage 2025 this year. If you have not yet grabbed your ticket, make sure you click the link. It's somewhere below this episode. Make sure you click the link and grab your ticket. I have a special discount for you. Also, okay, if you're interested in learning more about going from good to great, Verint has value realization services, right? So you can, if you're like, hey, I'm struggling a little bit with my forecasting techniques and getting the most out of my tool that I have, I got a link for you too below. I got a link for you. Y'all know I got a link. I always got a link, okay? So click the link and make sure that you get the help that you need so you can be transformative. That's what this year is all about, okay? Transformative leaders having transformative impact. Until next time, go be great and let's make impact. See you guys soon. Bye.